All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Abel Mansuri. I am the Language Access Project Manager with United Way of Southern Nevada. Thank you all for joining us this morning to workshop number 8. I would like to ask the attendees to go ahead and introduce themselves on the chat box, any information you would like to share. I would also like to acknowledge that this workshop was brought to you by United Way of Southern Nevada, in collaboration with Diversidad LLC, and it was made possible by the Language Access Project. We welcome our language access partners, government agencies, and nonprofit partners to join these workshops. So please feel free to share the link to any of these workshops. Also, you can find the recording of these workshops on our website, United Way of Southern Nevada Language Access. Also, you can ask for those that work for government agencies and nonprofits or community nonprofits. We do offer free translation, interpretation, and over-the-phone translation online. All you have to do is go to our website, fill out the form, submit it to us, and we can go ahead and process that for you. Also, before the meeting, if there are any special accommodations, such as needing an ASL interpreter, once you register for the meeting, you can click on needing an interpreter, and we can provide that for you as well. So I will go ahead and hand it over to David. He's going to go ahead and introduce himself and get started with the workshop. Thank you all.
Thank you, Abel. All right, so my name is David Loaiza-Funk. If you are not accent impaired, you can call me David. I'm the founder and CEO of Diversidad, which is a consulting firm dedicated to eliminating language barriers and fostering inclusion within the community of Southern Nevada. Some of my background is in healthcare administration, and also I've got quite the experience managing different organizations, especially in medical areas. And some of the leadership positions that I held in the past helped me organize some of the ideas to be able to moderate some summits and different diversity, equity, and inclusion conferences. And I'm deeply honored to be here today to bring you one more workshop on building bridges, which we will call Promoting Inclusive Services for Everyone. Some of the things that we're going to cover today will be defining inclusive services. And a lot of this is going to be based on the elimination of the language barriers. Language access is more than just providing translation services. As we all know, it's about creating an inclusive and welcoming environment where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued. It's about recognizing that communication is a human right and that everyone deserves to understand what is being said and also to be understood, regardless of the language that they're speaking. So I kind of want to explore some areas to help you guys and your organizations, also help your staff with the skills that they need to connect better with the clients that come from different backgrounds, and how you can create meaningful experiences that truly meets the needs of our limited English proficient community. So let me start with inclusion.
Hey, David, sorry to
Yes.
interrupt, but there's a portion of the presentation that is not showing. I'm
Okay,
not sure if you can see it on your screen.
Oh, I think it's because I have your cameras up here. Let me.
No, it's like in the middle, there's like I'm not sure what to call it, but it's covering. There we go.
Does that
Yep,
better
that's
or
perfect. Perfect, thank you.
okay? 1 second. So just out of curiosity, have any of you guys encountered some situations where language or culture differences made it difficult to provide the services that you guys provide, or personal experiences where it was difficult for you to receive some sort of service because of the language barrier when you went to perhaps Europe or Latin America and or any Asian country and encounter some sort of difficulty? If you like to share something, please, you can use the space bar to quickly activate your microphone and tell us something that you have encountered as a barrier. Anybody?
I'll go ahead and share.
Okay.
I would say working for some of the organization I worked with previously, we had individuals that didn't speak English that made it a little bit challenging for us to provide the information. I think many of us attending today have probably ran into a situation where they were trying to provide information to an LAP and they couldn't do so. Also, from me personally, when I first moved to the United States 10 years ago, I didn't speak any English. My first languages are Arabic, French, and Spanish. Had to learn 3 different languages prior to learning English. So going to the DMV to get my ID or going through the obtaining my citizenship process was a bit challenging because I couldn't understand what they were saying. And I think that's what my motives come from to put in a lot of work into this language access project is I know what the struggle is like going somewhere and not able to obtain information.
Thank you for sharing that. And that kind of brings me some memories from when I first came to the States, and it was just for a quick vacation. I think I was like 14 years old, and I wanted was thirsty. I think I was in Miami or probably Orlando, one of those two, and it was Florida, middle of the summer, really humid, hot. And I wanted a big drink, and I approached one of the fast food restaurants, and I was like pointing and trying to, and I was like, I soda, Coca-Cola, and I was like, of course, the person was saying what size, and I didn't know what that meant, and I like struggle, and then it's funny because come to find out after I got my small little drink and I drank it, the person right behind me got actually helped in Spanish. And the person that was the cashier spoke Spanish. I was like, seriously, I could have like talked to you in Spanish and got them understood and got them what I wanted. So yeah, and just like that, I'm sure that most of you guys have encountered or seen in different occasions. We've seen a lot of I would say the problematic issue of using the family members, especially the little ones, because the little ones pick up the language as a like a sponge. And when you grew up in a bilingual household, or your parents speak your a language, let's say in this case Spanish, and then you're exposed in school with English, then yeah, you become bilingual pretty quick, and then you understand. And as long as the conversation, like the soda, getting the right size, is something basic, simple, where to go, if I need a bathroom, that seems okay to get around. But when we come to providing this type of services and being inclusive, we have to be careful with who we use or who we allow to be used, because we don't know if they really know what they're saying, or if they're saying it precisely as how we want it to be. So let me. So let's. Anybody wanted to share something else? Had a personal experience? something from your own organizations that you have encountered? I know we talked a lot about spoken languages, but perhaps some of you had experience with the deaf community and uh, right.
Hi, David. It's Dolores and to the group. So I do think the difference of trying to communicate with deaf and hard of hearing people and hearing people trying to bridge that gap is a learning curve and understanding from their lived experience what is acceptable or what is not in our behavior. The other thing I wanted to bring up is sensitivity. What is the best idea ways to communicate with someone who perhaps you don't understand what they're saying because of the accent, or they're in the process of learning English and you want to be helpful in, maybe like using the right word or helpful but not disrespectful? Could you maybe mention on that?
That's an excellent. Thank you for bringing that up. That's an excellent point. Because one of the things that I experienced here in Las Vegas is that we get a lot of providers that come from somewhere else, especially in the medical field. That is some sort of a partnership with the Philippines to bring nurses to practice here. So we have a lot of nurses that speak Tagalog, Ilocano. And we have a lot of physicians that are doing the residency here, but they were trained somewhere else, or they come from a different country and they're doing the residency fellowships, and that's just an example on the medical field. And I remember when I was at UMC Hospital, very first week, I was helping out the interpreters, and one of the resident doctors called for the interpreter. I showed up to help out, and he was from India, and it sounded like he just came here from India. Like his accent was really thick, like sounded like he was speaking Hindi, but the problem that I encountered wasn't the accent. The accent, it was that he wanted to connect in some sort of way with the patient, so he started whispering. And when you whisper with an accent, it's kind of, there is the addition. It just adds up to the struggle, to the barrier. So I didn't want to be rude and say, well, the first time as an interpreter is like, sorry, this is the interpreter speaking. I didn't hear you. Can you repeat? But then when you get like to the third repetition, then it just becomes annoying. And for the person that is speaking, it's like, okay, so they might feel bad. And I didn't want him to feel bad about it. So my strategy at the moment was not related to the accent, but related to the volume of the voice, because that's what made it harder for me to actually hear the words. And I told him that I interpret speaking, I apologize, I can barely hear you. Let me move closer to you. And if you could please speak louder. And I was able to come out of that one, provide the communication the right way as it was supposed to be. And from that moment, I was like, wow, like I came from the South, North Carolina, South Carolina, and their accent, they speak like 20 miles an hour. And it was like a different perception also, like just coming here and getting my ear adjusted to the different accents. So I was like, kudos to those that are the interpreters that are facilitating here to the different providers that may have some sort of accent. So I guess what I want to say about that specific moment is that the idea is not to make it awkward or not be rude, but also be able to, engage in a different way. And for me to say, can you speak louder? It kind of helps the person to think about how they're talking and then enunciate a little better, or maybe slow down on the words. So it is easier to be understood. So there are different ways that we can approach somebody without creating some sort of conflict or not making them feel bad about the communication. Because depending on whatever day somebody's having, you might be short temper, or you might get a client that might be short temper, and you kind of want to minimize any type of conflict as possible. So
Thank
when we
you. That's helpful. Yes, thank you. And I also wanted to say about ASL that speak slowly. You don't know who's deaf or hard of hearing, and to not over exaggerate the words or your mouth or your face, just to talk natural. And a lot of people read lips. So I just wanted to share that sometimes people are shouting, and if you're deaf, that will not help.
Right, the shouting. Yeah. So when I train bilingual staff and interpreters, I make sure that and I think one of the upcoming workshops, maybe in a couple of months, we will cover a little bit this topic in detail about how to talk to somebody, just because there's a lot of misconceptions. Somebody that has never used an interpreter before would just say, "Can you tell her? Can you ask her?" And that kind of like moves the whole idea of communication away from engagement, and also the not knowing if they really understand is, oh, you don't understand the language, like let's talk to you louder. So yeah, doesn't help if you're deaf, or if you speak a different language, just speaking louder doesn't really make a difference. So thank you for pointing those out. So let's go into what inclusion is. And so inclusion at its heart means creating a space where everyone feels like they belong. And that's regardless of background, ability that they have, educational, language. So imagine a community where everyone can fully participate. Perhaps if you go to a library, you can see reading time and have all these families reading. But what if you have a deaf child? So it would be nice to have a sign language interpreter there that is also communicating the story that is being narrated to make it more inclusive for everybody. And some phrase that I heard is about diversity and inclusion is that so it's about, for those that like dancing, for example, is that diversity is kind of like knowing, the different dances and being asked to come to the party, but then inclusion is being is getting pulled out to the dance floor and have you participate and enjoy the process. So that's kind of the world or the bridge that we want to build to be more inclusive to everybody, make sure that everybody feels welcome. When we talk about language as a barrier, for many, language can be a significant barrier, especially as you age and you may be bilingual. Studies have shown that when dementia starts kicking in or some sort of mental health problem starts coming in, even if the person is polyglot, speaks multiple languages, their mother language, native language, or the language spoken by their mom is going to be the one that they might go into. And we've seen that a lot in healthcare as people age. So that's also something to keep in mind. One of the first workshops that I did, I brought in the Nelson Mandela's phrase that was when you talk to somebody in a language that they understand, it goes to their head. But if you talk to them in their native language or their mom's language, it goes to their heart. So that's something also to keep in mind when we offer services, especially to somebody that is bilingual or trying to standardize the language that we use. And so for not-for-profit organizations, despite their mission to serve the community, we all face barriers in communication, especially when we try to include different individuals, and the ability to fully engage and support the diverse populations becomes a little of a challenge if we don't have the tools that we need. So some of the common barriers that actually, let me talk about some of the legal and ethical responsibility that is I've heard multiple times, even if there is some sort of rule or some sort of NRS, Nevada revised statute that says something, people try to find their way around it and make sense out of it. When like 10 years ago, there was a new rule that came up for the clinics, everybody that's receiving Medicaid, Medicare, federal funding, which was the ability to announce that you provide the services in multiple languages. And I remember that there were the class standards, cultural, linguistic, and appropriate services that were being promoted. The state was doing a good job on doing workshops to different clinics. And I remember going to one of the UNLV sites, and it was full of residents and doctors. And one person from the state was presenting on the class standards. I was like, oh, this is great information. It's under that. I'm glad that everybody's here to listen to this. And it was kind of like what we are doing right now, promoting language access to remove barriers. If you have people that come from different backgrounds, make sure that in your waiting area, you have things that they can read, like newspapers or signs, things that they can occupy their mind in the different languages that you are serving, or that you might get clients that speak the language, just so they can feel welcome and they can feel that inclusion. So I remember one of the old school doctors already retired. He was just going there to, I don't know, maybe hear updates on new rules, but I remember he was the one that spoke up, raised his hand and said, you know what, in my clinic, I used to get somebody that spoke a different language. I would just not see them. There's no point for me to spend money on that. So it was, and it was one of those presentations where you have residents, new doctors coming in, and it's like everybody's like, "Oh, wait a minute!" Like, no, that's something that you cannot do nowadays. You might have been able to get away with that years ago, where you refuse to provide services. If you have your own practice and it's private practice, yes, you might be able to create some rules where it says, the typical, if you use profanity or we don't like you, we won't serve you. Yeah, you can create those rules if you have your own business. But if you, I don't know, for profit, or you receive some sort of federal funding, that goes out of the window. That actually, you have to be more respectful to everybody that you serve. You have to promote that you will offer some sort of language access, have the poster saying, if you speak this language, we will get it for you free of charge, and have it in multiple languages so everybody's aware that that's in place. So there is the legality on that. If I remember hearing conferences from the Department of Justice where they would say Title VI will kick in if you don't provide the services. Just telling somebody, when you come, make sure you bring somebody that speaks English. That's a violation of Title VI, just because, in other words, even though you're not saying it, you're implying that if you don't bring somebody that speaks English, you're not going to get the service. So you're kind of pushing the person away, even if you don't mean it. So it's good to quick educate your staff on that's it's better to say, if you need some sort of language assistance, please let us know so we can make arrangements, instead of saying, please bring somebody. Now, if they bring somebody and they use that person, then make sure that your policies and procedures allow the specific whoever they're bringing. So if it's a child, you gotta have something in place where it might say has to be 18 years or older, or if it's especially we're talking about community services, non-clinical, non-medical. So depending on how extensive it is, you might be able to allow that they bring somebody that help them communicate, or in this case, I mean, most of you guys have already implemented some sort of language services, telephone, video. As I said in the past, it doesn't cost you a membership. It just costs you use when you use it per minute, but it doesn't really cost you. It's more of an investment that you provide for your company. So in the long run, it doesn't really add up to your funding or to your budget. So let's talk about some common barriers. Some of the common barriers to inclusion, we have lack of awareness and understanding. So we have staff and volunteers that may lack awareness of the diverse needs and experiences of different communities, leading to an intentional exclusion or insensitivity. And like I said on the example of, if you please bring somebody that speaks English with you, that's kind of an unintentional exclusion. So we want to make sure that we kind of educate our staff on how to approach the clients when they speak a different language, or they're deaf, or they need some sort of language assistance. So in the case of, for example, a homeless shelter, they might fail to recognize the specific challenges faced by LGBTQ IA plus youth, leading to a lack of appropriate support and resources. I think we might have heard something about inclusion based on gender or gender and sex diversity. And we hear in the news some sort of issue with the jails, recently with the Olympics. So just make sure that there is good training for your staff on cultural sensitivity and inclusion. Limited language access. We've mentioned this in the past, the use of interpreters, whether it's video, telephone, in person, the use of trained bilingual staff, translated materials, translating the most important documents, whether they're brochures or vital documents. Make sure that you have a good list of vital documents that, whether it's just an intake form or something that you want your clients to know, make sure that it's translated. The multilingual staff can create significant barriers for individuals with limited English proficiency. The multilingual staff, they can assist you as long as you're training them. Make sure that you also have some sort of policy and procedures, some sort of training on making sure that if you have somebody that is bilingual, that they're up to date. Those that usually get certified in some sort of profession in interpretation, translation, as any certification, they need to have some sort of continuing education process, whether it's to renew their license or certification every few years. They're still getting new information, new vocabulary, updating their knowledge. When you have somebody that is just bilingual, no certifications, there is no incentive to continue the education, to to learn new words. So as an organization, you gotta make sure that you're providing your bilingual staff on or promoting the need for learning and improving communication. Cultural competence comes into play when offensive behaviors leading to or to struggles hindering effective service delivery. An example that I can give you based on cultural incompetence would be, for example, a food pantry that distributes food items not culturally appropriate for the community that they're serving. It leads to waste and a feeling of disconnection among recipients. Some of the nursing homes or places that they offer a meal, they usually go standard with whatever the kitchen provides, and they grilled chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, standard, and that some people that come from a different culture didn't grow up eating. It's like, oh, what is this? It's like for breakfast, like toast and I don't know, tea, coffee, scrambled eggs. Like, oh, that's usually not what I have for breakfast. It's like, where is the rice? What is the, or what is the, I don't know, for the vegetables in the meal. So some of the cultural sensitivity put into thought might reduce some waste in the product that some of the products that you're given. So that's something to keep in mind. Physical accessibility. Facilities that are not wheelchair accessible, lack sign language interpreters, or have inadequate accommodations for sensory disability can exclude individuals with disability. Community center with a ramp that is too steep for a wheelchair users, preventing them from participating in programs and activities. So if I have a wheelchair and I come into building and there is no way for me to go up, that's going to discourage me from going back to that place, especially if I don't have anybody to assist me. So just making sure that you guys have adequate accommodations, it's a plus. And last but not least, on common barriers is the unintentional bias and discrimination. Implicit biases can unconsciously influence decision making, leading to an equal treatment of certain groups. For instance, a job training program that unintentionally favors candidates from certain backgrounds due to biases in the selection process, limiting opportunities for others. So if you, so it's good to do the implicit bias training for the staff to make sure that, not everybody's equal. We are all individuals. Make sure that you don't judge the book by its cover. And that's a pretty good training to have with the staff, just to make sure that everybody's open-minded and more inclusive. So let's see a nonprofit so we talk about nonprofit organizations providing legal aid services to low-income individuals. While they strive to serve everyone, they face several challenges. So company that's assist limited English proficient, people with immigration status, like just the paperwork and maybe just low income. The forms and the documents that they provide, forms to fill out, those would be nice to have a translator or somebody to assist with filling out the forms, because that's usually the main challenge. And that creates a barrier for a lot of non-English speaking clients. The staff that may have some lack of training on cultural sensitivity, it may lead to misunderstanding and miscommunication when they address some clients with diverse cultural backgrounds. The office building, if it's not accessible, it will make it difficult for the clients to have that, for clients that have some sort of mobility impairment to access those services. And marketing, the organization's marketing and outreach efforts are not tailored to specific communities. So that might result in limited awareness and engagement among diverse population. So you guys are aware of the demographics, the type of community that we have, also the type of community that we get since we're in Vegas. We're very diverse, get a lot of languages. So it's good to provide some sort of strategies, which I'll talk in a minute. So let's talk about promoting inclusion and inclusive language. So inclusive language, meaning using the appropriate terminology to address somebody. It's crucial when we talk about gender diversity. Some companies are already implementing the pronouns, the use of the pronouns. He, if you're going to address me, you can use he, him, his. And people usually say, oh, I'm David, he, him, his. Those are my pronouns. And that's something that is starting to be the norm for a lot of organizations, just so they know how to address somebody. I was looking at the updated list on some of the pronouns, and there is more that I remember. And there is the, male, female, non-binary, and the non-binary ones are, there's quite a good list in there. For the most part, when we talk about addressing somebody, I think the best would be their name. A lot of the times when we use the Miss and Mr., that kind of also creates an issue. The use of some languages don't even, like we have male, female, Spanish, a lot of things are either male or female in the vocabulary. And there has been some sort of training, international training and awareness on the use of some sort of neutral letter instead of the A and the O, which dominates feminine, masculine, to use the X or the E as in French, make it more neutral. Some languages like Tagalog, they don't have the gender one. They don't have. So if you notice when you speak to somebody that's native language is Tagalog, somebody from the Philippines, they might say, oh, he is going to come later. And they're talking about a girl. And the reason is because of that, they might still be learning the language in English. And whatever came to their mind was a pronoun that they're not used to calling somebody by, whether it's male or female. They just have one that is neutral. So happens a lot. I hear a lot coming from the medical setting where I didn't know if the newborn baby was a boy or a girl. And luckily in Spanish, the word baby is gender neutral. And then we just use the pronoun or whatever the definite article is. If it's el, la, bebé, then that will make it more gender specific. So if I didn't know, I would use gender neutral possessive, which is yours, su, and then su bebé, that would make it gender neutral. And then I would try to look for the color blue, pink, if it was a boy or girl, and then start referring to the baby as whether it was a boy or a girl. So that was kind of a strategy that I had in my career. when it came to gender terminology. Usually the best thing to do is have a pre-session or find out how somebody wants to be called. Usually the using general terms like everyone, folks, people, that makes it more gender neutral. And it's just better just to call somebody by their name or what do you want to be called. When we talk about ableist terms to promote accessibility and inclusion for individuals with disabilities, it is crucial to be mindful of the language that we use. So instead of saying watch or listen to this, consider using the terms access to acknowledge and accommodate those with visual or hearing impairment. Additionally, phrases like walk this way should be replaced with go this way, just to be inclusive with those that have mobility aids or that are in a wheelchair. The use of correct pronouns, as I mentioned, is fundamental sign of respect and dignity. If you're unsure that someone's what the pronoun for that person is perfectly acceptable to ask. To initiate the conversation, introduce yourself with your pronouns and then inquire what the preferred pronouns are. This simple act of respect can help create a more inclusive and affirming environment for everyone. Allyship. So acting in allyship, we start with encouraging, promoting learning, make learning a continuous process for yourself and your team, stay up to date with the latest developments in the industry that you work in, and encourage your team members to do the same. Attend conferences, workshops, and seminars to expand your knowledge and skills, and share resources and articles that are relevant to your teamwork. Create a culture of curiosity and openness to new ideas. I'm sure you guys have your monthly meetings, if not weekly or daily, where you call it rounds or staff meetings. Those just create like a 5-minute in your staff monthly meetings to talk about new learning strategies, whether it's cultural approaches. And I've talked to some of the awardees about the idea of creating their own glossary, especially for the industry. Because we have medical glossaries, we have legal glossaries. But when we come to a different type of area, which is community service, social justice type of thing, there is a lot of mistranslations out there, whether it's in English or any other language. There might be a mistranslation. So it's better to create your own list of words. And based on experience, that's what the staff meeting would be about too, like encouraging those that are facing the public, those that I talk to LEP clients, limited English proficient clients, to share some of their some of their previous encounter, whether it was a struggle or a successful story where they use a specific word or something that they did to engage better. Calling out bad behavior. It's difficult to do sometimes, especially if you're not in a leadership role. But learning to recognize exclusive language bias or inaccessibility in your work and in the work of others is crucial to make sure that if somebody's not doing something right, or if somebody's not aware that they're not doing something appropriate, just call them out or just enlighten them. Be willing to correct others' mistakes in a respectful and constructive way. Be ready to admit your own mistakes if you're the one making the mistake, and learn from your mistakes. Don't tolerate disrespect or indignity on your team, and address inappropriate behavior promptly and consistently. Create a culture of good behavior. Share the spotlight. Recognize and celebrate the accomplishments of your team members. If somebody said, hey, I had this experience the other day where somebody came in and we didn't know what language was speaking, and this is what I did, and we ended up, communicating well. I got the right interpreter. We didn't know what it was, but kudos to that. Recognize them for that. Give them credit where credit is due. Express gratitude to the contributions of others. Invite subject matter experts every once in a while to share their experiences and perspectives with your team, and create opportunities for your team members to share their work and ideas with others. Building trust. So extending an invitation when we assume we know what our team wants, likes, and knows, we usually erase the uniqueness of their experiences. This can lead to a lack of innovation, creativity, and engagement. To create an inclusive culture, we need to be open to suggestions from all the team members. This means creating multiple avenues from them to submit their ideas, such as surveys, listening sessions, small group session, maybe a suggestion box that you have on the way out, getting some sort of information, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, getting their opinion, whether they like it. I got a new dentist now, and I remember going to the new facility, and I must say their attention to detail, their customer service was top notch. And I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. Like I haven't felt like this before, like going into especially into a dentist. Like usually, like sign here, fill out these papers, and you're good to go. But for some reason they were like being like over. I went there for an inquiry and like to set up the dentist, and they asked me like, how soon can I come? And I was like, well, I'm available now. Can we do it now? And they were able to see me right away, and they took care of me like right away. I didn't have an emergency, just normal cleaning stuff. But the way that they made me feel, I think it came with a purpose too. Like at the very end, they were like, oh, here, we have these cards, like you can scan them. If you please give us a review on how we did. So I would say that was a great technique, how they made me feel, to get an excellent review from me. And but what I want to say is that they were very well trained, and they were able to promote their way of saying, hey, make sure that you give us a rating and give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. So I think that's appropriate. Sorry, I was looking at the time, and I think I'm running out of time. So let me continue, reduce my examples. Give yourself permission to feel, meaning it's okay to feel something, whether you're upset or not. Just make sure that whatever you're going to say, you say it appropriately. And last but not least, I want to talk about promoting inclusion with pictograms. It's the Olympics time. Some of you might be following some sort of sport, or maybe hearing who got gold in the news. The Olympics, ever since 1964, they've been using pictograms. We see pictograms on maps when we go somewhere. We open up the map. Well, now we open up Google Maps or Apple Maps. But back in the days, or still in some recreation parks, you open up a pamphlet, map, paper map. You see all these icons still, you see them everywhere. But the Olympics have done such a great job with being inclusive to different countries that speak multiple languages. They have participants, they have families, they have countries coming to see their games. So that's something that we can learn from, how they establish the pictograms. If you see on the screen, that's in 1964. I don't have the last couple of Olympics here, but up to 2016, you can tell which one is basketball, boxing, fencing, gymnastics based on the pictures. You can just see the picture and say in an arrow pointing which way you need to go to see the sport. So this has been a great one. The one that I want to point out of all this is the second one, the Mexico City 1968. As you can see, they didn't include a person in the picture. You can still see what it is. Out of what we do nowadays, this might be one of the most inclusive ones because they don't portray a male or female. They don't have a person there. They just have the sport as it is. And very well, there is a specific rule of this type of pictograms, icons. And it is to portray the message that is given. So some of the, you might be able to see some bathroom, some that are funny, some that are gender inclusive, one that has like, I don't have it here, but it's like half pants, half skirt, like gender inclusive. But maybe going back to the Mexico City 1968, maybe not using a person, but just using the icon, you know, like this is where you can get water, this is where you can get a toilet, regardless of your gender. And for other services, you can find lots of them, or you can create one, you know, teaching a classroom right here. The last icon right here, it's, you know, it's kind of like customer service type of thing, but you can use it also as language access for an interpreter. You know, if you add something else, like this person can do from one language to the other, or the sign for interpreter in sign language, which actually the sign for sign language might be just enough without the person. And some takeaways that I want to give you is create some sort of auditing process. Make sure what you already have in place is working. And if it's not working, try to get some sort of feedback using surveys, using your employees during staff meeting to participate and say what struggles they're having or what successes. And if they're having some good action, good behavior, a success story, go ahead and congratulate them. Develop a language access plan. Very important to have, you know, check boxes ready. And we're gonna try to give you guys some sort of language access plan checkbox, and invest in staff training and community outreach. I might copy and paste this in case you want to explore some additional links on inclusion and diversity. Some are presentations, training, LinkedIn, interactive tools on pronouns, and yeah, guys, please click or scan the QR code to give us your thoughts on the presentation today. And we're going to open it up